Hello, welcome, and welcome. Hey, yo, hey. Uh, Let me introduce myself for those who are new to my YouTube channel or my podcast or wherever you are viewing this from or listening to this from. My name is Dr. Samaria M. Culver. I am the founder of an organization called Kingdom Creative Counseling. I am a licensed therapist with 20 years worth of experience. Ain't that something, y'all? Okay. I'm in my office right now. I love it. I love purple. Anyway, I'm also obsessed with writing, and I've written over 100 books. Okay. Technically, as of right now, it's 106 books. I think I just released my 106th book called Seeds, Sheep, and Shepherds. It's really, really good. Anyway, I love me some Jesus. I told you I love purple. And I love purple and I love Mr. Jesus. Welcome. So everyone's talking about an interesting topic, and that topic is called principles that govern godly friendships. Friendship breakups, y'all, can be just as devastating as like a regular breakup, like with your man and all that. Okay. It can be quite hurtful. And I want to say that to those who have a great call of God on your life or you're chosen and the anointing by which you have to walk into, it causes you to have to do things very differently than your average person. And that is not to be, prideful in any way. But you have to understand that you're dealing with realms of the spirit realm. Again, we can go there, even as we can go there because I do am a spirit-led person. There are realms of the spirit that you have to operate in. And so there's certain things you may have to do differently because you're not your average Joe. And that even comes to friendships. The Bible talks about how we have to guard our heart from out of the flows the issues of life. And this is the context that I'm saying that my pastor in Maryland, because I live in North Carolina now, but I'm originally from Maryland, and my bishop, maybe at this point, maybe over 20 years ago, believe it or not, I was in graduate school at the time, and he pulled us to a side, and he began to talk to all of us after church, a little brief after church. And he said to us, he said that, listen, well, when God wants to bless your life, he'll favor you through a person. And when the enemy wants to bless your life, he will distract you by sending you. I mean, the enemy wants to distract your life, excuse me, he will send you a person. And he said you have to be careful about your, he basically told us to be careful about our connections. Your destiny is defined, believe it or not, by who you allow into it. I have someone that I know, not personally, but I do know them. And the Lord told me to Samaria, this individual, and I've said this before, but I'm sharing it again because it's in context with our text today. This individual would have gotten here, gotten there, the vision, the purpose, the plan that God had for this individual by now, but they keep connecting themselves with the wrong people. If you look at even the life of David, I'm doing a study on the life of David. David was called to be king. And when you're called and chosen and your platform to be successful, to be a king or a queen or something that are great in the kingdom of God, you have two types of people. You have haters and you will have enemies disguised as friends. People sometimes want to connect with you for what they can get from you. The problem is that wrong connections can lead to destiny decisions that could greatly impact your life in a powerful way. I know of people growing up that had great calls of ministry and great calls to be successful, and they connected with the wrong person and spent all their life, and I literally mean all their life, not walking into the fulfillment of what God has in store for them because of who they were connected to. So when I talk about godly friendships, I'm not just talking about someone that you hang out with or you love to go dinner with or someone you chop it up and eat with. I'm specifically dealing with godly friendships, emphasis on godly friendships, because God is concerned about every area of our life, even our friends. If you got a friend that is, let me tell you something, if you got a friend and I heard someone say like if you got a friend, y'all sitting in the car, right? And one of your friends decide they want to go inside and rob a bank, but you sitting in the car. Watch this. You sitting in the car. You don't know it. They go inside. excuse me, they rob that bank, they come out, they drive off. You don't even know. You know they put the, excuse me, you know that they put a black bag in your trunk or in the car and drove off. You know nothing. You know nothing about what they've done. Nothing. If you get pulled over or get caught, they're not gonna say, "Oh, that was just my friend." They're not gonna say, "Oh, that was just a friend," and that person had nothing to do with it. You know what you're doing? You're going to jail for accessory to a crime that you didn't commit, that you knew nothing about. Because it could be implied. You understand what I'm saying? And so I believe in a lot of things. I do believe in being honest and integral, but there comes a time, spiritually wise, you have to be mindful. And I'm not trying to scare you. You have to be mindful about your friendships. Let's talk about friendships. I want to talk about characteristics and why people find themselves in toxic friendships. Sometimes when people are desperate or they're lonely, they'll find themselves connecting with people because they just are afraid to be alone. Remember, alone, I'm gonna talk to you about this in a minute, is a temporary place. You know, God told Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, New International Version, reads, the Lord said, in regards to Adam, okay, he said, it is not good for man to be alone. So I will make a man a helper. Now, alone does not necessarily mean lonely, but it teaches us this, that when we were first created, watch this, we were created by God for communion. We were created by God for companionship. We were created by God for community through relationship. Watch this, with three different people, with God, with each other, and our family. And let me say that again, because I want to make it clear. We were created for communion, which is companionship, relationship, companionship. We were created for community through relationship with God, each other, and family. Now, some people are like, I'm natural alone. I'm natural introvert. I can go hang out with myself, or I can hang out with a friend and have just the best amount of time. So some people are more extrovert than introvert. That's natural, but we still were created to have some type of community. However, like most things, the root of unhealthy relationships and division, watch this, is rooted in what happened one in the heavens and in the fall of man. So for those who know Satan, who is Satan, I mean we know who he is, was in heaven. And in heaven there is perfect community. In heaven there is perfect companionship. In heaven there's perfect relationships. And he decided to rebel. You understand? And so that's where the first fall of man fell from relationship with God. Well, not man, the angelic being, those who follow Satan's deceptive nature, fell out of communion with God. It started in the heavenlies first. And then it also replicated itself through the fall of man when Adam and Eve, again, Adam and Eve had perfect community, had perfect communion. They had a companionship first with God and then each other. Okay. And so what happened is that same Satan, okay, who did his stuff in heaven, did his same stuff on earth. And so if so it is imperative that we know that sometimes or lots of times that even godly friendship is not just a something that we do. It is also a spiritual issue. Okay, it is also a spiritual issue. Now, let me give you a context of how the scripture defines friendship, and then we'll kind of explore a little bit more. If you read Proverbs 27, 5 through 7, I'm going to read this in the King James Version as well first. It says, open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Wounds and friend? What that mean? Let's continue on. But the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. You ever had some frenemies? They pretend they're your friend, but really they got some stuff behind their back. The fool, the full soul loath and honeycomb, but the hungry soul, every bitter thing is sweet. Let me say it again. The full soul loath a honeycomb, but to the hungry soul, every bitter thing is sweet. What that mean? What that mean? What does that mean? I know. Talk about desperation. Let's talk about this. Let me interpret this a little bit more. So then I went to the Amplified version. Again, we're going to go back to Proverbs 27, 5 through 7. Amplified version, and it's going to explain a little better. It says, better is an open reprimand of loving correction than love that is hidden. It talks about accountability, basically. Okay. But verse 6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And it says in parentheses, watch this, one who corrects out of love and concern. But the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Watch this, because they serve his hidden agenda. What are you saying? A real friend is going to hold you accountable. They're going to correct you. And it says, faithful the wounds of one who corrects us. They're going to love you, but say, friend, I love you, but I'm concerned. So sometimes we don't have a proper definition of friendship. So we think friendships are people who just love us, and never tell us we're wrong. People that don't hold us accountable, or we in friendships with people and they. This is what I know, y'all know. For those who know, I work with leaders in their respective fields of practice. Sometimes when people see you being so successful, they're gonna attach themselves to you for the wrong reason. They have agendas. And you can be surrounded by people who say they love you, but a friend is not just going to say, I love you. They're going to hold you accountable. They're going to correct you. They're going to be concerned about you. They're going to see behind the fluff. They're not just, some people, I said this before, don't have friends. You got fans. They're going to tell you how wonderful you are. No good and well you are. A fake friend will tell you how wonderful you are. No good and well you're going down the wrong path. So a lot of times, in this world of everyone being offended, when someone tells you, I don't know about that friend, or that wasn't right friend, or friend, now all of a sudden you end up calling a friend an enemy, and an enemy a friend, because the enemy is just gonna tell you what they want, what you want to hear. They just don't. You can't see that knife behind the back. That's why you have to get over the flattery and the enticement. So what does the third verse mean? Because the seventh verse, excuse me, because it was a little bit confusing. He is the amplified version. He who is satisfies loath honey, but the hungry soul, any bitter thing is sweet. It means this. It is very difficult to be in relationship with someone. It's very difficult to do anything when you're desperate. If you're desperate for friends or desperate for some things, you will take on any and everything. You will take certain behaviors from anybody. When you are desperate, it's like a relationship, a friendship relationship. If you're desperate, you got to be in a relationship. You don't, you just take on anything. Anything is that's bad for you is going to be good for you because you're desperate. But when you have integrity, you're not desperate. You have a standard by which you establish friendships, and then you have a standard by which you do relationships and friendships, and you're not willing to compromise your standard. Kind of like when we were in high school, and peer pressure. You just all of them wanting to get along, go along. You just deal with something that's not in your best interest. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, if you tell me your friends, I show you your future. So if you got friends that are smoking, drinking, going down the wrong path, that's going to be your future. If you got friends that are compromising the gospel, compromising, you're going to be a compromiser. The Bible's evil communication corrupts godly character. If you surround yourself, because they're going to pressure you. So a good friend, a godly friend, is going to push you into greatness. They're going to challenge you. Someone you're dealing with a fake friend if they're constantly overstepping boundaries and almost like implying that you should compromise. And that happens when you really love God. They're gonna look at you. It's hard to be friends with carnal people. Is what I'm trying to tell you. So, what are some other points about friendship that we should consider? Remember, French, again, I said this, friendships birth through desperation tends to lead us down the wrong path. You will have seasons in your life where God will isolate you. And I'm not talking about complete isolation. I mean that you're transitioning from one season to the next. You may have to leave certain people behind, even that you love them. And again, that's found in Genesis with Abraham and his nephew Lot. And we talk about that with the people of Israel. There'll be seasons in your life when God is transitioning you. You just have to move forward, and everyone's not going to move in the same direction. But when you become desperate and you keep holding on to people that God has not ordained, it'll eventually lead you down the wrong path. Godly friends lead you to greater relationship with God. Okay, friendships birthed through trauma tends to have toxic tend to lead. Excuse me, let me read this again, y'all. I get tongue tied a little bit, but I'm gonna make it through. Friendships birthed through trauma bonds tend to lead to toxic relationships. And so you'll find people will do this as well. Oh, you've been through something, I've been through something. Oh my God. And you've been abused, I've been abused. You desperate, I'm desperate. And it's a trauma bond. And that's how we establish our relationship, but it's not future focused. I have a friend that I recently met, and an amazing person. We are like so much alike, but we did have conversation. Again, I'm not gonna tell all our business, but about things that we have experienced in the past. I was like, man, oh my God, you went through that, me too. Here's where it started trauma bond. We're not stuck there. This is what God is saying to me. This is how I move forward. I'm still healing from this. So even though we can relate to each other and have some similarities in our past, where both of us are moving forward. We're not stuck in that and that now this trauma bond. Because I'm telling you, when you can have a bond with someone and you feel, oh, they understand where I'm coming from. But where are they in the healing process? Are they gonna be stuck there? Are they just, you know what I'm saying? Are they just stuck in the past and the shoulda, coulda, and woulda, and they sad and depressed about what happened in the past? Or are they saying, yeah, it happened to me, but this is what God has done for me despite of that? That's a different conversation. Real godly friends mean you grow. Let me say it again. Real godly relationships or friendships are meant to grow you and not keep you complacent. You will find again with friends sometimes, and I had another therapist tell me that sometimes our friendships meet a need at that time. But sometimes friendships tend to break up because that person is stuck where they are. They're just happy, but you're moving forward, and sometimes there can be a divide. But real godly friendships always serve a purpose, and they are meant to grow you. Okay, godly friendships are more discerning than impressive, and this is again my people who are successful on paper. You have to discern motives and ask God for discernment. So you have to discern the motive of the person because sometimes people show up, just like dating, they're gonna show up trying to impress you and the best version of themselves. They're not gonna reveal the whole self. So they're not just trying to impress you with, oh, look what I did and look what I've accomplished, this, that, and the third. We can be friends. We should be connected because we are both successful. That's not how that works. But you're discerning of the person. More so than being impressed. You can have someone that's just as successful as you, but at the end of the day, this friendship is probably not going. This is not someone that's going to be a friend to me, and you're not necessarily going off of what they've accomplished in life to determine whether or not they can be your friend. However, I'm of this. If you're not really going anywhere in life in general, if you don't have goals, dreams, or visions, because I am someone that's motivated by that, I'm not going to be the best friend to you because I need friends that we are working on and continue to grow in that area. If you have a friend and you're a motivator and you're vision focused and they're just complacent, and why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And I don't know. You're gonna have a hard time. Okay. Godly friendships are not always perfect. Why? It's just because they consist of imperfect people, but they should always be purposeful and give you a greater sense of meaning. When a friend sees you, it's like, oh, friend, I see you. When a friend can pour into you and you can pour into them, that gives you meaning. Friends are not always business partners. Say that again for the people in the back. You have to set clear boundaries and know what this friendship is. Just because we're friends and we have a similar vision doesn't mean we need to join visions, okay? It's just don't. Just don't. Sometimes a person is just supposed to be your friend. They're not supposed to be a ministry partner. They're not supposed to be your business partner. They're not supposed to have keys to your house. They're not supposed to have all access to you. Sometimes they really are just a friend. And a friend does not mean all access. And a lot of times people end up dating people that they were just friends with and end up causing all kinds of drama because that was not the role that God wanted to play in your life. So again, just because we're friends does not mean we're supposed to be vision partners or business partners. Sometimes it's just generally you working on something, I'm working on something. We encourage each other while we're working on our own individual visions, and we leave it there. We're not always supposed to partner with that. Because you can have a friend that's really good in their perspective field of practice, but they're not good in what you need. You can have a friend that's really good about giving you good tips, but they're really bad at business. Or they're really bad at handling money. And you to connect with yourself. No friend is gonna be perfect, but you got to be real careful and set those lines of boundaries. You can love someone and say, we're not supposed to be business partners. Now, I'm the type of friend, if you, whatever product or service that you're offering, I'm going to support my friend. Like you sell a body, I love bodybuilders, or you whatever that thing is, you wrote a book. I'm gonna purchase your book. For me, that's just me. I'm gonna, if I can, whatever you're selling, I'm gonna, because I want to support my friend. But that doesn't mean we're supposed to connect like that as far as business partnerships. Okay, friends should be safe. Friends make you feel seen and heard. And I heard this from another therapist who I quote back all the time. She said, when you're younger, your family is the one you were born into. But when you are older, your families are the one that you choose. So your friends could be like your family. You can have, maybe a toxic family, but now you got a friend sister, or now you got an adoptive mom or something like that. Even in your adult life, God will give you what you need. Okay, there are lots of examples of godly friendships, such as Jonathan and David, and we'll talk about more of that in a minute. But friends should be equal partners. Is I will tell you this in a minute. It's very difficult to be in a friendship with someone who wants to be you. Just we'll pause on that one. I'm gonna explain that a little bit more. We must define the relationship. Remember, a mentor is not always going to be your friend. Okay, because there is a power differentiation that tends to happen. And sometimes you got to choose, am I going to be your mentor or I'm going to be your friend? Lots of times it can't be both. We're not at the same level. Friendships are equal partners. Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Good friends make you better. Bad friends are sent by Satan to keep you stuck. Real friends, watch this, don't compete or compare. They do challenge you. They do hold you accountable. Listen to this. You can outgrow friendships. Sometimes they meet a need, watch this, at that time. It doesn't mean you don't care about them, but you're not there anymore. Friendship breakups can be just as hurtful as romantic breakups. Friendships can either friendships can either be birthed through adversity or broken through adversity, because adversity is a revealer of character. See, when things are going well, look at the prodigal son found in Luke 15:11 through 32. You can read it on your own time. When he was making it rain, he had all the money and the prosperity, he had all kinds of friends around him. But he found out who his friends were when he experienced adversity, when all his money is gone. You know who your friends are when you either get elevated, or you don't, or you felt fall on hard times. Okay? So again, friendships can either birth, friendships can either reveal, let me say it again. Friendships can either be birthed through adversity or broken through adversity, because it reveals the character. Success can either be birthed through adversity or broken through adversity. Again, how does someone who is a true friend? Because sometimes we talk about trauma bonding, when we both broke and we both poor and we both struggling, we had a lot to talk about. But eventually you keep going, you keep growing, you run into the path of success. And then you start realizing there may not, because we don't all grow at the same time. But a real friend says, friend, if it's gonna happen for you, it's gonna happen for me, and they still push you. But sometimes, ooh, they get a little spacey. Okay. Let's talk about this. It is impossible. It is almost near impossible. I haven't seen it done yet. I just haven't seen it done. It is almost impossible to be friends with someone who wants to be you. It's one thing to admire someone. It's another thing to not have a clear vision of who you are, that you want to be someone. So I'm saying it first starts with admiration. That's fine. Nothing wrong with admiring someone. We should admire. Friend, I love the way you do this. I love the way you I love the spirit that you. I get that. But if they're not clear who they are, it turns to immolation. Immolation, meaning they begin to shapeshift to almost be like you. It gets real weird. And then it leads to competition. They start plotting and planning and doing same things you do. And at some point, it leads to disrespect because their plans don't work. Remember, God will never anoint you to be somebody else. So have to be careful of people who are not clear about God's vision for their life and who they are because they automatically will try to attach themselves or find their identity in someone else's world. And it never works out. And they can think, wow, you successful in an area, but not me. Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes it's that you are trying to emulate someone else's life and not getting their results. Again, because God will never anoint you to be somebody else. Oh my. Okay. You still have to be prayerful and mindful about who you allow in your life. Okay. And remember the different levels to friendship. Everyone, nobody should have all, the only person who should have all access to you at some point should be your spouse. And hopefully you pray about that. But just because someone has all friendship, my friends can't get keys to my office. I don't care who you are. You understand what I'm saying? I just can't I like literally by law I can't do that. Every friendship has different levels, but they don't get all access to you. Okay? Healthy friendships have healthy boundaries. Okay? So let's talk about examples of godly friendships. Okay, Jonathan and David, 1 Samuel 18. You can read that. Elizabeth and Mary. And again, so it teaches us that every friendship has a purpose. You look at these, and there's different other dynamics as well, but we're going to kind of go over here. Apostle Paul, things like the similarities in both of these examples meant it was meant to push them into purpose. If you look at the character of Jonathan, Jonathan knew that Jonathan on paper was supposed to be the next king, but he knew David was supposed to be the king, not him. And so he was able to push David and help David because David had no royal lineages. He didn't know how the royal king and how to respond, how to act. Jonathan protected him. Jonathan protected him against someone that's coming against him. Jonathan was such a real great loyal friend, and you cannot put loyalty in someone else who doesn't have the heart character for it. Okay. Same with Mary and Liz, even though they were related, I think they were cousins. Uh, Let me read this. Luke 141, and I'll show you. It says, at the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leaped within her, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. You are carrying a prophetic baby. Even if you have already walked into your divine purpose. There's another level to you, right? So divine encounters come from God. But watch this. Elizabeth's baby leaped when she heard Mary's voice. Both of them were carrying a baby. And so you know you have a godly friendship, even though they were cousins. It was a godly because their baby leaped. And I say all that to say, as it relates to now, you know you have a godly relationship, a godly friendship without them trying, without them trying to impress you, without your baby, your prophetic baby leaps when you come into an encounter with God. And again, these divine encounters only come from God. It also teaches us that friendships don't always come in the vessel by which we thought. Elizabeth and Mary were of a different age bracket. Okay, Elizabeth was an older woman who was past her prime, birthing a baby, and Elizabeth and Mary was a young girl who shouldn't be carrying it, well, quote unquote. She was unmarried, she's pregnant, but we know how it was immaculate conception. I still like to say that sometimes your friends are not always going to be the same age as you. Sometimes you can have a friend that's years younger than you, but you're divinely connected. Sometimes you can have a friend that's older than you, much older than you, but you still are divinely connected. Don't get caught up in what if this person got to be the same age as me. No, because that's not how God operates. And notice we don't see a whole lot of Mary and Elizabeth really. You don't know a whole lot about their relationship. You know that their babies leaked. Elizabeth's baby leaked. Some scholars believe that maybe she had been was having a miscarriage because the baby. I'm not sure if this is true, because she hadn't heard the baby kick until Mary spoke. I don't know how that works. I don't know necessarily if I believe that. I still like to say, but when you're around godly friendship, your prophetic baby will leap. You don't see Mary and Elizabeth doing ministry together. You know they were hanging out. You don't see them really all constantly around each other. So it's not the brevity or the length of time that you hang out with someone. It's more like, is this a God connection? And I believe that the time they spend together, because both of them are carrying something that would change the world. Elizabeth was carrying John the Baptist. Mary was carrying the seed of Jesus. What seed are you carrying? When you have a godly friendship, that baby will leap, you know? Moses and God, believe it or not, was a friend. God was a friend to Moses. What do you mean, Samaria? Is that true? In Numbers 6:12, 6 through 7 reads the New Living Translation, and the Lord said, listen to what I say. If I were if there are prophets among you, I the Lord reveal myself to him in dreams and visions. He said, but not my servant Moses. Uh, I trust him. And there's another text that says, and God speaks to Moses as a friend. So God was friends with Moses. You can be a friend to God. And remember, God doesn't, you can say what God does not reveal his secrets to everyone, but those who he is a friend to, he knows he can trust your heart. He'll reveal all kinds of secrets about him, his word, other people. Can you be a friend to God? Listen, you can't trust everyone with your secrets, but guess what? Neither does God. I don't care what, God does not trust everyone with his secrets. Those whom he trusts. And there's some people that go to church and they shout and they buck and they speak in tongues, and God does not reveal. They won't spend time. It's all for show. When God can trust you, when you can be a friend to God. I know we sing that song by Israel Hall, and I am a friend of God. Okay, you can say it, but God knows who those who are truly his friend and not. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so why do people have toxic friendships? One, we don't deserve the motive of the friend. We put too much stock in them too quick, too soon, too fast. I mean, we offer loyalty when what we are defining is toxic loyalty. If you can treat people any old kind of way and then you be upset when they leave your life, you are a toxic person. That's toxic loyalty. That's not friendship. Boundaries are not clear. There's some friends you can call 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Not this friend, not me, not me. Okay, but the boundaries are not clear. Their concerns are dismissed. So generally, even if it's not your concern, when we have a friendship, when we have conversation, we say, "Friend, I don't like this." We should be able to be respectful, have a conversation. Either we disagree respectfully, we move on, we're still friends. But sometimes when you got a friend, and I had a friend, and they were saying some really offensive things. This is years ago, and I thought we could be friends. And I would say, hey, the language is really offensive. I said, hey guys, this is not okay. You mind not saying that? Oh, you're just doing this. You, oh my God, you're so sensitive. But it was like something. If I repeated back to anybody else, they'd be like, whoa, I said that. But I knew this person wasn't my real friend because I instead of them saying, okay, I respect that, or let's just not talk in that tone or that language, they were just doing the absolute most. I realized this person was not a real friend because they're not going to dismiss your concerns. Even if it's not their concern, they're not going to dismiss it. We are friends with a spirit of Judas, which is jealousy, greed, and pride. I did a whole teaching on the spirit of Judas, so I'm not going to go over that, but you may want to go through my past, my YouTube channel. Friends that are stuck in the past, by the way. We are friends that we outgrow, but we keep trying to keep them around. Sometimes God has to dismiss these people from our lives. He has to do something because we won't move forward, and we keep trying to keep the wrong people around. We don't grow at the same place at the same time. We don't honor or protect the relationship. I talked to you about loyalty. If you have people that are loyal to you, and this is our friend group, and you introduce someone else into the friend group, they have to follow that same code of conduct as far as how we deal with each other. The problem is that you have these friends over here, and these people are very loyal. Their character has improved. When you meet someone else, which you can bring them here, and they become disrespectful and dishonorable to everyone around you because it's really toxic. And then now you don't defend that relation. You don't say, "Hey, wait, these are my friends." So now you end up dispersing your friendship or dealing with people and allowing toxicity in the relationship, and then you wonder why these people don't want to deal with you anymore because you're not a loyal person. Okay, when you have true friendships, you protect it. I'm like that. If I've had people come, oh, so and so said this and so and so said that about you, but why are they comfortable talking? Why didn't you defend my character, right? And so I'm the type of friend is we're not going to talk about my friend in any capacity while I'm there. And I will defend that person without them being there. But we got friends, you in my space, kikiing, oh my God, I love you so much. But around the scene, y'all all sitting there talking about Samaria. And you okay with it? Mm-mm. And let me tell you something about the Holy Spirit. He will reveal that to you. He will reveal to you the secret things, okay? Including the people that talking about you. Listen to this. Your friendships don't always come first in your life. and then someone gets offended. Your friendships do not always come first. And I still like to say again, in friendships, we grow in different places. Like when you're in college, there's a way you show up with friendships versus when you're in your career. As for example, a random example, that's like your friend gets married and they have kids. Well, and you're off living your life. You may not be able to speak to that friend or have the same quantity of time with that friend because their life has changed. Now they have different priorities. It doesn't mean they're not a friend. I'm not a friend you can call 24 hours a day. We just talk on the phone multiple times. I'm not that friend. There was a time where I was working from 8 to 5 in my clinic. I was working from 5 to 9 or 10 at my private practice before I went full time all day Saturday. So I was extremely busy. And so I say like to say, particularly, you can't have the college mindset where all of us start to stay place, and then because people grow, people have things that going on. They may have gotten married, they may struggle with, depression, they may have struggled with loss, people losing their parents and things. They may have just are working full time and trying to establish their business. Sometimes friendships don't show up the way in which you would have liked to because of the other things they have got going on. You cannot be someone's world. And people end up getting offended. Well, yeah, we used to do this and we used to hang out. We ain't got. You have a quality of friend when you don't have to hang out all the time. We don't have to see each other all the time. But when we get together, it's just like nothing left. Okay. So we have to, your friends may have a life outside of you, and that's okay. That just happened. That's life being life. Okay. But don't let offense. So offense and disagreements not handled appropriately. If you type of friend, and I was talking about this with someone recently, where, put it on the table. Let's talk. Let's be respectful. But let's talk about what so we can move forward. But some people communicate differently. Some people think that they can be offensive and they just not gonna say anything. They'll sweep it under the rug. We supposed to just show up, be friends with them, and that's not how it works. So disagreements and offense not handled appropriately. And I talked to you about that disagreement does not have to lead to division, but sometimes it does when we don't handle it in a mature way. A friendship, I told you about not being protected. Um, we still have to make time to cultivate friendships, and that can be difficult. I'm in a different phase in my life where I can show up a little bit differently, and God is adding to my life. But then when I was doing that whole years and working, I was tired. I was tired. Uh, we assume time means commitment. Like if you've been friends with someone 10 years, well, you all that have all access. So well, sometimes we just been wasting time. You know what I mean? So just, we don't serve the same God. You don't have any standards, no apologies, disagreement that leads to division. Um, no friend can be your everything. Remember that. No person can be your everything. So you have to have your own individual life. And it is difficult to be friends with someone who struggles with the root of rejection. Okay. And again, you can't be friends with someone with the world, basically. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 18, the Message Bible. It says, don't become partners with those who reject God. How can you make a partnership out of right and wrong? That's not partnership, that's war. Is light best friends with dark? Does Christ go strolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? Ooh, who would think of setting up pagan idols in God's holy place? But that is exactly what we are, each of us a temple in whom God lives. God Himself put it is very difficult to be in relationship with someone who is doesn't have a relationship with God. Second, James 4:4, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity before God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy to God. It's difficult. Let's read James 4:4 through Living Bible. It reads, you are like a faithful wife who loves her husband's enemies. Now, if you got a wife who loves her husband's enemies, hmm, hmm, don't you realize that making friends with God's enemies, the evil pleasures of this world, makes us an enemy of God? I say it again. If your aim is to enjoy the evil pleasures of the unsaved world, you cannot be a friend of God. Hmm. Sometimes you're connected with people in the name of being a friend, but they had wrong motives to begin with. You can't be friends with someone. You should never be friends with someone who's a gossiper, prone to arguing or negativity. Sometimes people will form quote unquote friendships based upon their dislike of you. Or the only thing they do is talk negative. Or the only thing they do in their friendship is gossip. They want the tea. Okay? You shouldn't be friends with someone who repeatedly needs to be rescued. That means we always show up, but if you're giving more than you're getting, they constantly doing stuff, they're full of drama, they constantly fighting somebody, they doing the absolute most. It's not really a friendship, you're a rescuer, some victim needs to, anyway, you can't be friends with someone who has a helpless mentality or victim mentality. Sometimes even good friends cannot help you. But it doesn't mean they're not your friend. For example, Job's friend, they would have long, 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 long conversations. His friends really tried to get him to admit that he did something wrong. Job's friends were wrong, but the Bible still calls them friends. So sometimes God will get you to a place where they can't help you. Notice their pattern. Remember, sometimes people don't change their pattern, they change people. And this is why we find ourselves in toxic friendships or narcissistic friendships. Givers get got a lot of times, and takers tend to connect themselves with givers. And in the name of loyalty and friendship, you're gonna give birth. All right, so the final thing we'll talk about is just a few more minutes that we're done is how to find godly friendships or godly connections. Remember, you can't force it; it will happen. But Proverbs 3, New King James Version says, "In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path." God will just reveal who your friends are. You will meet these people when you least expect it. You have to be careful again about people who are successful on paper because you will have people that want to connect with you for the wrong reasons. But finding friends is similar to like dating. you know? So the difference is we're not dating this person. You're gonna be friends. So be patient. You again, I told you you will have times where God isolates you. That's just a season, but God has every intention to because again, how what I said at the beginning, we were created for community. He has every intention of connecting. Now, there's a part that you got to do now, okay? But God knows what you have needed. But sometimes He may say, I had to isolate you so that you can learn to obey my voice. Sometimes the reason why people's toxic relations go wrong is because God has to contend with the voice of your friends, and you keep seeking your friends and whether you seek God. And so God has to take us through seasons of isolation. And there's this season, which is temporary, where we can only lean on God. And like Job, our friends can't help us. Doesn't mean they have abandoned us, but like Job, when it's a God thing, our friends can't help us. Okay. Remember, Proverbs 18:24, King James Version reads, A man that has friends must show himself friendly. And there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Who is that? God. Okay. All right. So, other things you should do, observe them from a distance. Remember how people treat you, other people is how they're going to treat you. I was at a restaurant some years ago and with a group of folks, and I remember this one person was being very, very mean, very nasty to the waitress. And I thought, okay. If someone is going to be nasty and rude and dismissive to other people, you think, oh, I'm just a good friend. They're not going to treat me that way. Honey, you are in for a rude awakening. If they can treat other people and mishandle other people, you just give it time. Give it time. So how they treat, observe them from a distance, how they treat other people. And I think you observe what they post on social media. If they gossiping and showing fights and inappropriate sexual behavior and all those kind of things, and that's what they post on social media, that probably be who they are. If they're cussing folk out and they can't keep friendship longer than 6 months, how someone treats other people, I promise you, unless God has got the most time ahead, they again, people repeat patterns. Sometimes, excuse me, people will change people before they change their pattern. Sometimes, watch this, God won't send godly connections until you get rid of unhealthy connections. Let me say that again. Sometimes God won't send godly connections until you get rid of the unhealthy connections. Learn to be patient. You can't force a fit. You cannot force a fit. Sometimes you meet people and they're good people. They got a lot going on, but you know at the end of the day, we're not gonna be friends, but I still respect your grind. Okay? Be comfortable being alone. And that's again, that's a temporary season. But again, when you're desperate, you tend to do desperate things and deal with desperate, you just do the absolute most. You tend to surround yourself with toxic people because you're afraid of being alone. Being surrounded by people and being surrounded by friends are not the same thing. Okay? Remember that just because someone admires you or speaks highly of you doesn't mean we should be friends. Sometimes you got to take the compliment, bless them, and send them on their way. Everyone is not going to have capacity for what God is taking you. And sometimes the wrong friend could be dead weight. God will send you godly connections. Be open, be kind, be friendly. And sometimes we're not friends 'cause we just have different personality types. And we just are different. We live our life differently. I had someone tell me years ago, Samaria, this person does not get along because how you are a planner. That person lives by the skin of their teeth. They're always at a state of emergency. They always got something going on. You don't live your life like this. So you're gonna conflict. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't have to be some friends with someone just because they're family. You don't. And so ask God about those godly connections, the people in your life whom He'll send you those people. He really will. He will send you those people. Okay? And if God tells you no, it's a no. Pray about everything, even friendships. Okay? All right. I wish you a happy remainder of your day. For those who are going to be celebrating the upcoming holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, have a friend's Thanksgiving. Why not? All right. Love you much. I have some free ebooks, links below. If you want to go to therapy, go to www.kingdomcreativecounseling.com, North Carolina residents, or you can get to the state of North Carolina. Or again, I do have some training courses as well, www.trainingchristianleaders.com. We're back another day, y'all. We're back another time. We'll be back for another teaching. Okay, Fridays, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you much. Have a good day. Bye.